Thank you for staying with us. Christian faithful all over the world are preparing for Christmas, a holiday that celebrates the birth of Jesus Christ and symbolizes giving, sharing, and caring for one another. It comes with a lot of merriment, buying and selling, as well as vacations, all of which entails money. But it is looking like it's going to be a bleak Christmas for some Nigerians as the prices of food items they will need have soared above their reach. Many who plan to travel to spend time with family and loved ones might not be able to do so as transport companies have jacked up their fares due to the lingering fuel scarcity and increased pump price. How will the average Nigerian cope with all of these? Joining us to discuss issues around the high cost of food items in this festive season is economics Kelechi Deka. He joins us now via Zoom. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast and compliments of the season.
Same to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Like we have pointed out, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a joyful season for a majority of Nigerians with the rising inflation and the rising cost of food. The bells might not be jingling as the song is being sung, but talk to us what you see happening, because it seems like every Christmas we have a rising cost. A bag of rice right now is said to be hovering within over 40,000 naira, moving towards 50,000. You know, these are Christmas staples. A lot of Nigerians may not be able to afford that.
Yeah, basically, I have to look at it from maybe a philosophical point of view, because sometimes when things get hard, everybody should turn into philosophers. You look at what's happening in Nigeria. You know, the last time I was in your studio, you know, we spoke about the likely impact of the flooding that affected farming regions across the country and how it's going to lead to a steep in the prices of foodstuff going into the Christmas. And even before then, you know, we've been having this rising inflation. The current inflationary rate we're having now at over 21% is the highest since 2005. And it has been rising over the past 9 months, you know, adding up. And when it's happening like this, it's like the consumer price index, you have to know that the cost of food items and everything related to food and upkeep is going to rise with it. Then coupled with the fuel scarcity we just had, in some parts of the country, like in a place like Abia or Imo or so, they're selling about 300 naira per liter. And in some parts of the north, they're selling over 300 naira per liter. And all these things have compounding effects. So the situation we have now is getting out of hand. But although I have to state that it is not only Nigeria that is suffering this high rise in food prices. All over in most parts of the world, especially where you don't have food subsidy or subsidy for agricultural sector, there is also high inflation affecting food prices. And in some places with a subsidy for agriculture, high inflation is also affecting everything, because the way inflation works is that if it affects some of the basic core basket products, it affects almost everything aligning to it. So it's going to be quite tight for the Nigerian. Unlike in some advanced countries whereby charity is an industry and whereby charity is a culture and a tradition that's embedded, where during this Christmas you can be driving around, you see churches, you know, and some of these charity organizations building food parks, you know, food camps where families can come and take as much as they need for the Christmas. We don't have that kind of thing here. Even though there's some of the organizations that are trying it, you know, that are now, you know, finding themselves in a very tight corner. A church very close to my neighborhood tried this last Saturday. The overwhelming number of people they saw, you know, they were such a shock that they ran out of relief materials. So it's going to be tight. Then with the high transport costs, when I look at some of these things, then I start asking myself, is there a need for a family to buy a bag of rice? Hence, Christmas is something that is just a week or few days. So families should start looking inwards and how they should be able to minimize their expenses. But let me tell you something, behavioral economists have found out during festive seasons, there seems to be a kind of spirit that holds people to even buy things they don't need with money they don't have. Everybody will rush into the market and keep on shopping, keep on shopping, keep on shopping until they drop dead. But by the time they bring everything home, they start asking themselves, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? If there is any time for people to start thinking properly, I think the present economic situation calls for that introspection so that people will focus the scarce resources they have for the things they need instead of going on a shopping spree and start, buying things that they may not need. It's going to be very, very hard for a lot of people. And for those who can't travel, like we keep on saying, if you can't travel and you have your loved people or loved ones in the village or whatever, split the transportation money you've earmarked for your travel and send to them. Let them enjoy their Christmas there. You enjoy your own where you are. You can do a video call with them and celebrate Christmas. Because when things get tough, people have to be quite innovative and ingenious about how to navigate some of these things. It's a very hard time out there, and people are going through a lot to even be able to meet their daily feeding needs, not to talk of want for Christmas.
All right. Well, Kelechi, it's a good way to assume it, especially when it comes to people who have been traveling at Christmas every year, for them to change the family tradition. Of course, it's logical to look at it that way, but some people have the attachment they have to these things go far, far, far beyond what they want to change anytime soon. But from analysis, in fact, we've had you on the program several times over the years where we talk about this at Christmas, like this constant issues of inflation at Christmas, and it seemed to get worse every year. You speak to any market woman, it tells you last year was better than this year, last year was better than this year. It happens that way. But is it not something we should all expect and know that it is just the human activity? There may not be anything too different from, or especially different from what human activity just generates at the time. Is there something unusual about the Christmas period?
I would like to agree that there is nothing unusual about it. But the way the human mind works, it works even in a way that the people can't really understand it. There is this pull, and when there is a pull, there's going to be a push, and those are some of the things that push inflation up. And also, because we live in countries where there is no price control, and we live in places whereby a lot of people look for opportunities to make as much as they can. In some parts of the world, during Christmas season, if they tell you that there is a discount of 50%, there is a discount of 50%. Even so many big retail stores and shops and supermarkets make it an effort to use the Christmas season to bring down their prices so that more and more people can have access to what they need. But this thing is not just something that, maybe one shopper will just come out and do. There is the chain. It starts from the manufacturer down to the middleman, down to the retailer, and down to the last person. Because also, they live in a system where government also give rebates, tax rebates for some of these manufacturing organizations so that they will be able to keep this tradition going. But when you in Nigeria, we don't have such protection as a consumer. We don't have such protection. So what we witness in Nigeria is basically exploitation. From both the transport companies, yes, they have excuses of high fuel costs and high cost of maintenance of vehicle and all those things. But there is also, even when we don't have fear cost issue, there's also an element of exploitation. So when you bring an element of exploitation into the spirit of Christmas, a kind of grabism where everybody wants to grab as much as they can, you see what we are seeing now. Yes, I know that people always want to travel. That's the urge to travel is there. And people go to lengths. Some people borrow money to even travel. And when they start up their January, they start up as debtors. And people also know that January, school fees come knocking and all those things. So that's why, in Nigerian parlance, we say that people should borrow themselves bread, because the situation, what we are passing through now, the level of poverty in Nigeria now, and the level of inflation we are having now, we've not had it in a long, long time. And the level of food insecurity that is staring everybody in the face, we've not had it in the long, long time. So I'm very much worried about the way things are going. But it behoves on individuals and people to try as much as they can to cut down on their expectations based on their resources, because there is nothing the government is going to do for you. We don't have as much charitable organizations that will be able to take care of the needs of people. And the inflation from the way it's going, with the fuel price, the other time the GSS came up and had a meeting with NMPC and they said they gave everybody for 8 hours. This is more than a week they did that. And there is still fuel queues, and in some filling stations in Lagos, they're selling at 210 to 230. And so these things will have multiplier effects. It's going to impact on prices of goods and services. And it's the last consumer that's going to bear the brunt. So I wish that people will understand some of these things and try to see how they navigate a very treacherous pathway to be able to at least stay whole, stay alive throughout the Christmas, because it's a very tough situation. As I told you, globally, inflationary pressures are all over the place. Turkey is experiencing 85%. Ghana is experiencing 45%. And it's so tough. But when you live in a country whereby there is a cushions, whereby there is a kind of social security, it is easier to be poor there than to be poor in a place where you have a kind of rat race and dog-eat-dog mentality.
Right. For our own country, is it that it is so challenging to have that cushion to addressing this matter, because we know year on year is a recurring event and a recurring situation? By now, one would expect that we come up with some sort of solution for a period like this. Should states be looking at that, even if the federal government is not looking at, having that cushion effect for a majority of consumers? How then do we also address the matter of the grabism that you spoke about, the exploitation? Is there a way we can nip that in the bud?
Yeah, if you look at some of our tax laws, like I used to tell people that consumption tax, like VAT, should not be federally controlled. It should be state controlled, because those who are consuming the products are also those who should benefit from whatever the state has to give. Like, for example, in Lagos, you have a lot of the breweries and, others, the breweries and distilleries around Lagos, Ogun, Axis. So if we are the ones that are drinking the beers, we are the ones that are taking the booze and all those kind of things, it also has effect. It also has health implications. So Lagos state government should be in control of consumption tax, so that whatever money they make into it, they can pour it into the health system, so that that's how they do overseas. Is from the fat they make from booze that they also pour into research into diabetes and all the health implications. So those are the things that should be done. But the federal government still has a role to play. Everything boils down to creating enabling business environment for enterprises, for businesses. Because if things are going well for businesses, should be in a position to at least, give some sort of cushioning over price control in their prices. But the government, we have the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. This is what such a ministry should do. But you can't do this if you don't have data, if you don't know how many people you have, and if you don't know how many people who are in need, and if you don't have that kind of information, you won't be able to achieve that. Like the church I told you very close to me last Saturday, they planned something for a few hundred indigent women, but there were over 5,000 indigent women that turned up, and the whole place, they had to call in the police to be able to control it. So, I mean, if you tell that church to try that kind of thing by next week, they will tell you they're not going to do it. So these are the things. When tell Nigerians that development is interconnected. You need to have data. You need to have all the information necessary. You need to know who is who, so that it helps in planning. And this is where the National Population Commission should come in. It's not every 10 years you say you're having census. Census should be an everyday affair. You have to know. We have to know who is dying. We have to know who is being added to us. We have to know people who are slipping into poverty. We have to know people who are coming out of poverty. That's how it is done all over the world, so that it enables the government to plan. But that is government that is willing to plan, and government that is willing to tackle some of those challenges. But if you have a government that is so aloof to some of the sufferings of the masses, you wouldn't be expecting them to look into creating basis for cushioning. Okay, you see the issue of the flooding. Some of the victims of the flooding are yet to even be identified as that now. So if you want to give them relief materials or some sort of thing, some of them would have died off in their lack and in their poverty before the relief material gets to them. And also, we have to factor in corruption. A lot of people who work in some of these agencies that disburse some of these relief materials also use that opportunity to fester their own net. So everything is connected. So that's why for us to start fighting some of these things, we have to cut down corruption. If you cut down corruption, then some of these things will start aligning the way it should be.
All right. We hear a lot of people are traveling at this time. We also hear reports of insecurity here and there in parts of the country, although the security agents say they are on top of the situation. But how do you think the rumors of insecurity, or even the real insecurity itself, is going to impact on how this Yuletide will be celebrated by people?
Yeah, over the years, I've been in need. I've never missed Christmas traveling all my life. So, and I've been able to observe a certain trend. Closer to Christmas, there used to be a spike in crime activities. Like if I use the maybe Southeast South region as an example, there used to be a spike in criminal activities and in insecurity closer to Christmas. But as soon as we enter into Christmas, there used to be a kind of drop in criminal activities. And some people posit that the criminals are now enjoying their money, the money they made during this thing. They're using the Christmas to enjoy it. And others also posit that the presence of so many people within the villages, within the communities, and also some of these people are also people who are willing to confront anybody because they're also armed in their own way, tend to cut down criminal activities. And, if you understand the Southeast community system very well, it will be very hard for any criminal or any group of criminals to try to hold the community hostage during Christmas period, because, you also have a large number of mad. From my own observation, criminal activities to drop drastically during Christmas celebration periods, because I do notice sometimes we stay on the road driving, visiting friends as at 2 a.m., 1 a.m. and all those kind of things. And, the roads are so free and so safe. There used to be a kind of succor from having so many people around. The larger population of people tend to provide its own kind of psychological security. So that's what, from my own observation in the last 20 years.
Right. Earlier I asked, is there a way we can curb this matter of grabism and exploitation that happens within this period as we see it? And then, by way of perhaps advice, what would you advise people to do at a time like this, cutting their coat according to their cloth? How would you want them to, manage their resources at this point?
Yeah, it's very important, and I think people should start looking at some of these things from a different point of view. I mean, if you have a family of 5, your family of 4, why do you need a bag of rice for Christmas? I mean, a quarterback can do. Even some, 2, 4, 5 dericas of rice can do and give you the same, you enjoy your Christmas, have a lot to eat and stuff like that. Why must you have a bag of rice if you cannot afford a bag of rice? Why not cut down instead of spending 40-something thousand to buy a bag of rice? You can use 10,000 to just go and get rice and use the other ones to buy every other thing you need to buy. People should start thinking outside some of these traditional ways of doing things, because when he hits you, and it hits you personally. It doesn't hit you communally because you don't know how your neighbor is managing. That's why I advise people to start looking inwards, to start cutting down on expectation, and stop living your life based on the expectations of your neighbors or expectations of your friends. Live your life based on your own expectation. And you see, when you think about advanced societies and you think about the issue of enlightenment, these are some of the processes that brought about enlightenment. And people start living their own lives, and instead of living lives based on the expectation of someone, because when people start living their own lives, they will focus on what they need, not what they want. Because obviously, what people want are basically things they use and in kind of showing off to other people. And you can't be talking about passing through tough times in Christmas and somebody is talking about buying a human hair of 500,000 naira. I mean, and that person is still complaining about Christmas. So these are some of there has to be a reprioritization of things that basically matter to people. We need to start thinking. We are not just thinking, we need to start making use of our thought process so that we'll be able to survive, because it's going to be a long, long winter. If you understand the present economic situation and understand what the federal government is going through in the area of funding, you will know that this thing is not just going to leave us after Christmas. With January, February is not going to be different. This inflationary pressure is going to continue rising. And by the time the challenges of run and the banks that will be occasioned by the new Naira notes comes in, a lot of things are going to be compounding, and they are compounding on the citizens. So that's why the citizens should also be able to start thinking about their survival, ways of surviving. But as I keep on saying, we need to develop a culture of charity. We need to develop a culture of helping, extending help to those in need. And when we talk about grabism is also a kind of a challenge we have in the charity industry, because you find out that some of the people who have will still present themselves as people who don't have. And that's a greed. That's the kind of greed that's affecting every area of our society. And these are not good. So these are the things we should be thinking about how to be helping ourselves and how to be coming up with ways of managing things within our resources. You live once and you have to live for yourself instead of living for public acclaim or public applause. In the long run, you hurt yourself. And, I think that poverty and lack is a very good teacher, in the sense that, nobody is going to tell you the effect it's going to have on you. So it behoves on people to start looking inwards, to start focusing, introspecting on the way they live their life and the things that are needs and the things that are wants, and know how to manage their scarce resources to go for the things that are really, really important in their lives and in the lives of their families. And also remember that by January, schools are opening and, they'll start asking for school fees and stuff like that. So you don't have to mortgage your children's educational future based on a Christmas that's going to be for 1 week.
All right, Kelechi, you talked about the issue of social cushions that are found in other climes, in developed countries. You said that it is easier to be poor in those settings than to be poor in areas where you don't have social cushions. Now, these cushions are certainly not things that you can put overnight. There are things you develop over time, and then they become the culture and the norm of society, where it helps people here and there. But we see that in curbing inflation and liquidity, excess liquidity that creates inflation and so on, the Central Bank of Nigeria is making every single desperate move to ensure that they curb it. The Naira redesign is one of those. What do you think this Naira redesign is going? How do you think it's going to help the situation headlong?
Yeah, I support the Naira design. I support the idea that from time to time, the Apex Bank, the monetary issuing authority, should be in control of the currency that they issue out, and from time to time, they should also keep on improving on the security of the currency that is being issued, the security of the legal, what is legal tender. But sometimes you see in Nigeria, most of the times we do the right things for the wrong reasons. When you're doing what is right by redesigning a currency and by improving its security to make sure that it's very hard to be counterfeited, when you're doing this based on predetermined agenda of catching some people, of doing this, you see that it affects implementation. The spirit of rules and regulations has a way of affecting its implementation. I would have loved the situation whereby the CBN or the government just comes out and say, yes, we need to redesign this, we need to do this from the monetary authority, we need to strengthen our currency, because it is what is the way it is done all over the world. But sometimes when you have in mind that I want to catch some people, that's why I'm doing this, you will find out that along the line, you may end up not even catching the people, and you may end up not even implementing the policy in the right way. Then when you come about the Naira design, in which, one of the aims is also to help drive the cashless system, you have to, raise the issue of infrastructure. For you to drive a cashless system, there is need for requisite infrastructure that will drive it. In a situation whereby oftentimes over 60% of the people are complaining about the infrastructure, they will say they do transfer, it does not get. They get debited and they don't get any cash, and sometimes complaints take over 2 weeks, some months, and some are so banks frustrate people to the extent that they just forget about making complaints. Then you find out that you have underlying factors that are also working against the policy you are trying to push. So in pushing the policy, I would also expect the central bank and the banks to work with the telecommunications organizations. Technology has improved enormously all over the world, so that we will be able to put in the right infrastructure to be able to drive that. That's very important. Then coming about the cushioning effect and the culture and tradition of charity. You see, some of these those countries where these things are done, government give a lot of tax rebate for the manufacturing sector. They give a lot of, there are huge subsidies in the agricultural sector. That's why in some of those countries, you see that some farmers, some big farmers or some big corporations will buy up some products from farms and give it out to charity, because the charity organizations are not taxable. So it gives them opportunity, it gives them the leeway to be able to carry out some of the things they're carrying with less expenditure. So that's what we have to do. We have to influence our taxation, to be able to work in that direction and come up with policies that will enable companies to focus more on charity.
All right, we have to leave the conversation here now, but we must thank you, economist Kelechi Deka, for your time on the program.
Thank you so much.
Right.